Hey Fern Creek Class of 2020, I'm Mr. Tennyson and I'm excited to be here to share with you a series of videos all about money and why it matters to you right now as a young person. This is of course part of the Adulting 101 series that you're already familiar with, and hopefully you've seen lots of good videos from other teachers about all growing up and living an adult life once you've graduated high school. There's a lot involved with being an adult, but you are more than capable of doing those things. And a lot of this stuff comes from uh, resources and expertise that at least I, as an adult, took a long time to find, right? It wasn't until I was older that I really started to discover a lot of this information. And the truth is, the earlier you get started, the better it is. And I mean that in such a serious way when it comes to money. But we're going to talk more about what that means as we go through this series of videos. This is the first video, and hopefully it's the one you're watching first. I want to talk to you about your perceptions of wealth as a young person, and how those might differ from what being wealthy actually means. So my first question for you really is, what does it mean to be wealthy? Think about that. Do you associate wealth with something like a nice car, like this BMW M3, one of my favorites? Do you associate it with having a really nice, luxurious home, maybe like you've seen a celebrity have, or just someone you know that's perhaps very rich and lives in a extravagant house like this? Do you associate it with clothes or the things that are that you acquire to wear, like a Rolex watch or Gucci sneakers or this Supreme sweater? Do you associate wealth with those things? Do you associate wealth with the food you eat, right? Burns Steakhouse is one of my favorite places in Tampa, Florida. It has the best steak I've ever had in my life, but it's very, very expensive. And I wonder, would you associate being wealthy with these things? Or maybe you're like me and you really like to play PC games and you associate being wealthy with having an epic battle station like this one. That's a pretty sweet rig right there, if I do say so myself. But honestly, those things don't really represent wealth. What they represent is what I like to call an expensive lifestyle. And an expensive lifestyle is one where we have lots of expensive, depreciating assets like cars, clothes, and technology, all those things I just showed you, with the exception of the house. And let me tell you what depreciating means if you've never heard that word before. Depreciating ultimately means when you buy something, does its value increase over time or does it decrease? Now, of course, if you're thinking about a car, it has more value than just the price associated with it if you were to sell it or when you buy it, right? It gets you from point A to point B. It's important in your life, but nevertheless, it's a depreciating asset. Very few cars go up in value over time. An expensive lifestyle is also associated with a lot of temporary excitement. You feel this excitement when you go to buy some good, like that Rolex watch, right? Or that new car. And I know I showed you lots of pictures of things that maybe you wouldn't even think about affording right now. But think about maybe a peer of yours that's gone to buy the latest iPhone, right? Maybe there's some temporary excitement, but if they're really having to pay for that device, I bet it's followed by a little bit of remorse over time. Or maybe they just can't go out with their friends as much because they're paying a high phone bill. Things like that, right? So we associate an expensive lifestyle with temporary excitement. A lot of times it's followed by remorse. And there's plenty of consumer debt with a lifestyle like this. Now, what I mean by consumer debt is a debt that really has a high interest rate, things like credit cards or some loans that stores offer, things like that. We're not talking really about student loans. We're not talking about a loan for a home, and we're probably not talking about a loan for a car, depending on what kind of car it is. But we could really get into the weeds on that. But these are the things that we associate with an expensive lifestyle. Now, people with expensive lifestyles, they have lots of these fancy things. And a lot of times, we associate those things with wealth. But this is what a real wealthy lifestyle looks like. A person with a wealthy lifestyle, they have substantial appreciating assets, things like investments, things you might not even heard about yet, like a 401k or a Roth IRA, which we will talk about. They probably have a reasonable home, which is a great appreciating asset to have. Generally, home values go up over time. And lastly, they have the best appreciating asset you can give yourself in life, and that's an education. Now, you've just completed, or are getting close to completing, a free education, for the most part, courtesy of the public school system. And the next steps in your life are about how you capitalize on that investment. Or maybe you decide to continue your education at college or a trade school. That costs money, but it's the best investment you can make with your money right now because the payoffs are so high over time. And we'll talk more about that in the next video. People with a wealthy lifestyle aren't concerned and they're not filled with remorse about the things that they buy. Rather, they have a really strong sense of financial confidence and security. I want you to think about people in your life that have a strong sense of financial confidence and security. If they're anything like the people in my life that I perceive that way, they're not extravagant spenders. They drive modest vehicles. They live in modest homes. And the things that they usually spend the most money on are their children, their grandchildren, and the people they really love and care about. The truth, though, is that people who are living a wealthy lifestyle, not an expensive lifestyle, could probably pay cash for most of the pretenders' expensive things. They could pay cash for most of those things that we looked at, right? Someone with a really wealthy lifestyle might be able to pay $40,000 for a new car from their checking account, but they choose not to. That's not their priority. So I want you to think about who is portrayed as wealthy. Top left corner here, we've got Ninja. If you don't know who that is, he's a really big game streamer, right? He's a very wealthy guy, or at least we perceive him as wealthy. Jeff Bezos, right, has the highest net worth of any human being on the planet, as far as I know. I didn't check today, but I think he's still worth $78 billion. That's quite a bit of money. We've got Cristiano Ronaldo here in the bottom right corner. He's a famous soccer player. He's got quite a bit of money. And then we've got these surgeons, right? We perceive all of these people as wealthy for one big reason. It's their income. So we associate their exorbitant, their very high income with wealth. But what if you don't have a high income? Does that mean that you can be wealthy? Would you perceive these people as wealthy? In the top left corner, there's a guy that owns a lawn mowing business. We've got some doctors in the top right corner. We know they have a high income. I've got a computer programmer, a software developer here in the bottom left corner. And then in the bottom right corner, we have what we perceive as a humble plumber. Do you think those people are wealthy? Based on our perceptions of wealth, the cars they drive, the homes they own, the clothes they wear, that kind of stuff, we might not perceive 75% of this group as wealthy. We might only think that the doctors are probably wealthy because they have a high income. But the reality is that all of these people are just as likely to be wealthy as this group of people. And the key reason that is because accruing wealth and actually having wealth in life have almost nothing to do with your income. Now, granted, you have to have at least a decent income, right? We cannot live in poverty and accrue wealth, and that's a separate problem for a separate video. But even people with a very modest income in today's society can accrue wealth. Unfortunately, Americans, we tend to perceive wealth as being attained through some random fortune, right? We looked at these people like Ninja or Jeff Bezos. They've had exceptional opportunities in their life, or they've sort of won a lottery system of some kind, right? So you probably know people that are constantly buying lottery tickets because they believe that's the only way for them to achieve wealth, right? And we also think about being wealthy or being rich as meaning just owning stuff. If we have lots of expensive stuff, expensive refrigerators, expensive cars, expensive watches, expensive shoes, whatever it might be, we associate those things with wealth. And we lastly typically believe that financial insecurity is inescapable and it's due entirely to external forces, meaning things that we don't have any control over. Now, I want to add a caveat here. Income inequality is absolutely real, and it's a problem. It is a legitimate problem that we have yet to solve. But income inequality and being able to accrue wealth are different things. I will grant that there are some gray areas in there. But for most people with decent incomes who have earned a high school diploma or earned a bachelor's degree, wealth is totally possible. But the result of this American mindset on what it means to be rich is that at age 65, if you were to take 100 Americans, right, you would have one group, and that's that tiny blue sliver right here. You'd have one group that falls into that ridiculously rich category. People like Jeff Bezos, okay? Not even really Jeff Bezos. He wouldn't even be on this graph, honestly. But the very wealthy, the very, very rich would be in this category. These are the people that are driving Ferraris around town and can afford to. And then you'd have another 4%, that are actually wealthy. Meaning that at age 65, they're prepared to retire, and they don't really have to worry about changing their lifestyle drastically. And then you've got 95% of the rest of these Americans that are about to enter what I would like to call panic mode. Because the only income that they've got that's really secure is Social Security. And life on Social Security isn't the greatest. It's just not a lot of money. And if you've been living a lifestyle for 40 years as a working American, you probably will expect to continue that lifestyle at age 65. You won't expect to live in poverty from that point forward. But that's the reality that we have right now. I want you to think about wealth as your savings minus your spending. And put it another way, wealth is not what you make, it's what you keep. It's what you consciously decide to keep with every ounce of income that you get. And you might be asking yourself here at the end of this, like, why does this matter for me right now? I'm just graduating high school. That's a valid question. What if my income allows me to save no or very little money? Also a valid question. And then the last one is, I just want cool stuff. I'm only going to live once. How about that? Well, as for the first question, when it comes to saving money, time is our best friend. So we're going to talk about in the next video why starting to think about this stuff right now is the most important financial decision you can make in this moment. Because time is money's friend. It makes your money grow really fast if you're smart. The second one, what if your income allows you to save no or very little money? Well, hopefully you've been thinking about that through high school. Right? Hopefully you've been focusing on the one thing that's most important in your life right now, and that's getting a good education and taking advantage of the public education that's been made available to you. And maybe you have plans for post-school, whether that's joining the military, going to a trade school, or going to college. All great options that increase your ability to make a decent living wage. But if you're not in that situation, then you need to ask yourself, one, how can I increase my income? Or two, what am I spending my money on? And when we talk about having a budget and saving money, maybe we'll help address this question and you can figure out, well, what of my income really, like, where is it going? What's it matter that it goes to? We're going to talk about that. And the last one I want to talk about is I just want cool stuff. I'm only going to live once. Hey guys, I know that you're 18 right now, and it seems like And I'm not trying to be condescending, I promise. I was 18 too, and I'll be frank with you all. When I was that age, I got a huge windfall of money. I got $25,000 cash in my checking account. Okay? I squandered all of that money in about a year. If I had chosen to save that money effectively, I would have over $500,000 in the bank right now. Now, if you think about that, it's cool, maybe, to have a bunch of cool or fancy stuff like expensive cars, whatever, when you are 18. But when you get older, you can enjoy it a lot more, I think. At least that's my opinion. So another thing to keep in mind is just because you're 40 years old doesn't mean you can't enjoy lots of stuff. You still have lots of life to live, right? At 40 years old, you're not even halfway through life necessarily. So keep that in mind. But the other point I'm going to make there is that when it comes to wealth and when it comes to saving for freedom from work, retirement doesn't have to come at 65. Freedom from work doesn't have to come at 65 if you're smart and your income is good enough. You can stop working much earlier in life and enjoy that cool stuff much earlier in life than you think. I hope that this video kind of got you thinking about changing your mind on what wealth really means. Accruing real wealth does not require a huge income. Okay? And we're going to talk about how you can achieve wealth without that huge income and why the income really isn't the most important thing in the next videos. Again, I'm Mr. Tennyson. I'm thankful for having you here listening to this, and I hope it was impactful for you. I'll see you in the next video.